Hello and welcome to the live. Hello and welcome to the live. I was going to talk about ProSex Jesus and the real Jesus versus the Antichrist, um, Trump, the Antichrist, Christianity. Um, the ways in which Christianity was completely opposite of Jesus, um, being, of course, problematic and leading to our current state of affairs, and how the plan was, even though this was going to happen, this is what patriarchy will do to a love religion, ruin it, and um, repurpose it or repackage it in ways that serve them. And so the response is to repurpose it again, to end Christianity and repurpose it with a different religion that is in many ways the opposite of what Christianity was. And one of the ways that it's the opposite is being pro-sex, because one of the fundamental flaws or problems of Christianity is being anti-sex. And I don't know of any exceptions to this. I imagine there could be some, but I don't know of any exceptions to this of any churches that exist currently. But what it did make me think of, because I saw the Dracula movie yesterday and the Testament of Anne Lee, is that on the one hand you have this Dracula, this vampire mythology. On the other hand, you have um, Anne Lee and all these different Christian cults, many of whom are celibate or have some sort of um, issues with sexuality. And the thing that makes vampires so attractive, or makes vampires so popular, is the sexuality. Um, Although, of course, it's presented as this taboo thing, vampires. And they have this, odd relationship with Jesus that's supposed to be oppositional. Well, um, I'll put it this way. If we have that type of opposition to um, evil, to these like demons, then they would be the ones uh, burning, setting crosses on. Well, I take it back. They are the ones doing that. Thanks. So the problem is all these Christian, or Christianity itself is not very loving. It's very anti-sex because of their whole fallacy about original sin and things like this. That was represented in the Anne Lee movie, which I thought was um, I thought was a pretty strong example of how these things can work, how people can have religious experiences that involve like true visions from God, from Jesus or something, but they don't correct them on certain things, or they're allowed to, when they return to their human states, um, return to some of the same biases and things. In a lot of ways, they're not. In a lot of ways, it all comes like a package. But there can be certain things, like for Anne Lee's case, it was because of all this trauma and stuff. And part of that's the religious trauma of being raised with that deep of a um, shame of sexuality, which I think our culture is not that far away from today, even if it's been 400 years, or what would it be, 300 years since then, 200 or 300 years since then. So that's the thing we can change. That's the thing that will be, um, or one of many things that will be different in Church of Judas after it replaces Christianity. one of the characteristic things will be the goddess instead of God. Um, but the other characteristic thing, probably equally characteristic or equally um, the opposite of what they've been doing, is being pro-sex instead of being anti-sex. And you think about how many churches that applies to, I'd say it's probably most of them. Think about how many churches are opposed to Judas. I'd say that's probably most of them. So, someone's leaving messages that require review. I didn't want to have to work. So, anyway. So I was thinking about the vampire myth and how vampires are kind of the monsters that people cheer for. I don't know if the other monsters really qualify that way. I think most of the time in our monster movies, people, are generally supposed to be afraid of the monster and rooting for some way for the monster to be disposed of. Not so much with vampire movies, I don't think, because people seem to generally cheer for the vampire. My theory behind that is oh, nothing's going on. Yeah, you guys are just super boring. My theory is that just leave emojis or something, like tap the screen whenever they don't tap the screen here on YouTube, but do reactions or something, or leave emojis or something. The most of the easiest ways to know what Jesus stands for is just everything the opposite of what Trump stands for. So in regards to being pro-sex, Jesus is pro-sex because Trump is anti-sex. I mentioned that in a previous live. Somebody was trying to say that wasn't true, and it's like, well, what's an example of Trump being pro-sex? And they didn't have anything to say. So but yeah, everything the opposite of everything Trump says, does, and thinks will help you lead you to Jesus, especially right now when all this terrible stuff that Trump has done is coming out, and everybody's going to look at you that way. Everybody's going to think if you're okay with that, what does that say about you? How terrible of a person can you be if you support this stuff after everybody knows what it is? And it's going to look really bad that you didn't do what you could when you could to stop him. And all you got to do is, it's like kind of too late, but it's also kind of not too late, because it really hasn't all come crashing down yet. So this is really the opportune time to turn on all that evil and stop being one of those guys. Oh, well, it's okay. The wall socket. It's not really like a makeup tutorial thing. It's not really what my channel's about. I think there are. I don't know if you can still be on TikTok. I was going to talk about how um, since the real Jesus is pro-sex and Trump is anti-sex, anti-human, anti-everything. Trump's the Antichrist. Then sexuality and sex and just a discussion of sex can free people from Trumpism. I mean, but the only people in the chat so far were Trumpers who don't want to be freed and don't want to have sex. And it's like, well, it's just, it's pointless talking to virgins about the thing that could change their life, but they're actively not doing by being in the live resisting, you know, the truth about stuff. It's just trolls suck. That's all there is to it. Like, net and YouTube's full of them. We should be getting more real people. We should be getting more like Trump Talk refugees, people from Trump Talk. Now that they can't say Epstein over there anymore, they can't say Zionist. I was thinking, oh, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna make this little bit of content. Basically, the biggest problems of the Biden administration were not arresting Trump and the genocide and not releasing the Epstein files. Like, the worse the files turn out to be, the more you think, well, this makes it a really big deal that Biden didn't release these files either. But is that all the same thing? Are those three things the same thing? Not arresting Trump, letting Israel do a genocide, and not releasing the Epstein files. Are those all the same thing? Is that one thing, or are those three things? Anyway, I think I'll just make that content because I don't know if we're going to get anybody but the Trump hooteners in the chat. We'll see. It's only been 10 minutes, but I don't really want to go live for too long when it's just Trump hooteners. They're just the lives that don't matter. They're just really boring. They're so boring. Like, you get spoiled by TikTok, or you used to get spoiled by TikTok and actually be able to talk to people. And then, I've been spoiled lately by having 2 or 3 people in my chats here on Net and YouTube that are actually worth talking to. And then the problem is, yeah, you feel spoiled by that because you're like, damn, it's these people again. Or these, Trump hooteners. It's these bots or trolls or whatever they are. It's these Trump hooteners, and it's like, there's something good within them somehow as well. It's kind of hard to say that, honestly. There's something that they've abandoned that they could reclaim that is good. Put it that way. They used to have a soul. I'll put it that way. Um. Okay. Like, it makes me curious why you people are on. What you guys expect on YouTube lives? Like, I looked around earlier today on YouTube lives, and they weren't good. But yeah. Yeah, they're just weird Trump hooteners. While there's Trump hooteners here, like, what are you supposed to do? I guess you could look at it like as a form of meditation. Like trying to be without thoughts, trying to mirror their brain activity. It's actually a pretty good meditation technique. Just to pretend to be a Trump-Putineer, like just to envision what zero brain activity feels like. Just nothing. Just without thought. I'm gonna have to try that again sometime. Anyway, back to the subject. The ProSex Jesus, Church of Judas, vampires. Um, this connection between Judas and vampires, I don't know exactly what it is. I think it has something to do with not dying. But then there's this connection between Jesus and vampires too. There's this undead connection. And then there's this connection between these communities, these Christian communities, that they're not communities of vampires, but when, as many of them do, they emphasize celibacy and have to take people away from the regular community in order to be in their celibate community. It's like a vampire. It's like sucking the life out of, it's like one organism, this community, sucking some life and blood cells, individuals, out of another organism. I mean, it's fine. You could say that for any type of cult or group or something, and probably should say it of many cults and groups, especially these MAGA pipelines and these different, the different wings of MAGA, the Zionists and Christian nationalists and the Groypers, the two different sides of MAGA. You should probably point out that they're in a cult that does this to people, that relies on this type of operation of people, vampirism, in a bad way. And that vampires in general, as a archetype or as a mythology or as a reality, whatever you want to call it, vampires are very attractive because of this dark side or flip side of Christianity. And Christianity's some bullshit. So there's a flip side of it that is good. It doesn't have to come with the trappings of vampirism or whatever else it is that they package sexuality in order to demonize it, or in order to keep it demonized even in the place of celebrating it. So we'll see. Sexuality, pro-sex Jesus defeats the Antichrist Trump and this prudish patriarchy and abuse and stuff. Like, they're obviously very weak, and they're at the end of a long series of losses, like patriarchy and anti-sex, anti-woman stuff. Is lost about everything, and now they're like, okay, after gay marriage, they're like, okay, we're gonna get you anyway, Pee Wee. They're like going after trans people. Like, well, we'll get you anyway, Pee Wee. And that should backfire on them to begin with, but we're like at that spot. We're at that place where that hasn't yet backfired on them as it rightly should. But we'll see. And then again, this is the end of they keep losing and losing and losing. They're going to lose this too. It's all of them. They're evil empires against trans people. They're going to lose that one too. But it's kind of their last gasp. Death throes of the patriarchy. But anyway, I did my part. I feel like I already feel like I've already said enough. I could stand to say more personally, but it just seems it's much better when somebody's like who can understand things is in the chat. When you get a main character in the chat who can understand stuff. Okay, Lucia is gay. Lucia is gay, so good. Good job. Well done. And that's really important because these Trump mutineers, like, they're just like ultra problematic on top of a culture that's already problematic. Like the culture's already super anti-sex, anti-feminine, and homophobic, transphobic. And then the MAGA is like, the the horn of that, the, the peak of that. And just being gay, like I'm not even gay, but just me wearing this shirt, like anything we can do helps. So like everything we can do helps end Trumpism. And that's what I call the pillar revolution. I call it the pillar revolution because there's a lot of it we can do from bed. Hello. A lot of it we can do from bed, including this, like live streaming, connecting like this. Sex, love, rest, sleeping. They do it to themselves while we're asleep. The more of them do it to themselves, the easier it is for us. So now that we've got 2A, the NRA and stuff is on our side against Trump. They're not against Trump enough, but I mean, that ship is starting to steer. And pretty soon they should start to realize, hey, once you turn against Trump even the littlest bit, he's coming for you. He will destroy you if you don't destroy him first. So it's kind of like guns or Trump. Guns or Trump. You got to pick. Same with the churches. They're um, arresting people, terrorizing people, and AI generating their response, lying about how they respond. A Trump Putin here. I'm lying about their response over churches. So churches are going to have to choose Jesus or Trump. Jesus or Trump. And pretty soon that split is going to show pretty clearly that Jesus is the opposite of Trump, the Antichrist. And the opposite of everything Trump says, thinks, and does is Jesus. And that includes sex and sexuality. Sex is good, Trump is bad. Sex is good, all this sex trafficking is bad. So Jesus stands for sex, Trump stands for sex trafficking. And Jesus has probably always been here, right? I mean, what happened to Jesus supposedly? Did he just take a long vacation after being resurrected? What was he resurrected to do? Again, take a long vacation? Was he just at Sandals? Down in Costa Rica or something? Like, Jesus has apparently returned in all sorts of forms, including Ann Lee. I just saw the Ann Lee movie the other day. Or vampires, like vampires seem to qualify more to me because vampires seem to be this like dark side of Christianity where sexuality is encouraged instead of discouraged, which is distinct from every branch of Christianity. I don't know. Let me know if I'm forgetting somebody. I mean, besides like the hippies or like I'm trying to think of who else besides the hippies. Is anybody else pro-sex and like believe in Jesus? Anybody come to mind? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? Anyone? Trump Mutineers are Trumpers. MAGA. Trump Mutineers. They're traitors. So they're Trump Mutineers because Trump, Putin, like it's the same thing. Trump mutineers. They betrayed the country. They're mutineers to the good ship America. They betrayed the country for Putin. Trump mutineers. Anyway, so check out the Church of Judas to replace all patriarchy Christianity. War and Trumpism to end Trumpism and war. Check out the Church of Judas. It does so by replacing all patriarchy and Christianity. You can just see the hashtag Church of Judas for my content about it. Well, when I think about it, you might have to scroll and look at some different things to find good content about it. I put the hashtag on too many things, probably. But, if they're somewhat related. I justify it because you never know what somebody might come across. Well, sorry it was so boring. It makes me feel like taking a nap. But just sex isn't something people really want to talk about. Sex isn't like a hot topic. Sex isn't something people are interested in. I don't think we should change all that, and we will change all that. I'm going to keep talking about it anyway. I don't care. I don't care if it's not what the algorithm wants. The algorithm doesn't want us to, you know, um, talk about anything liberating or good. So, just going to go against that anyway. Talk about it anyway. And in this case, it's sex and Jesus. And how the ProSex Jesus will defeat the anti-sex and anti-Christ Trump sex trafficker. Like, it's getting down to that. People are going to realize they've been betrayed, and hopefully their response will be simply to betray the evil system of which they've been a part. Just leave it. Just say, we don't belong here anymore. We never did. We got tricked. You don't have to explain it, but just leave it. Like, it's really bad. So, anyway, at least everybody will know that soon. I won't be the one having to feel like I have to tell people. I did kind of say I wasn't even going to be addressing this stuff, but I wanted to talk about Jesus and sex. It just seems like nobody really wants to talk about it. That's cool. I'll keep talking about it different times a day until I find the people who are capable of talking about sex, spirituality, you kind of have to know that Jesus is pro-sex in order to talk about it in these terms. And not knowing that or thinking the opposite is certainly understandable. Although, there's enough people who see through enough stuff. I did want to make one more point before I go, I guess, that, some people don't believe in Jesus, don't believe Jesus is real. Well, it's like, even if there was no Jesus, there would still be the reality of what everyone said about Jesus. You say the same thing about vampires. There might not be any real vampires, but there's still a reality of what people have said about them. And we can talk about that. We can talk about what that means, even if it's all just made up. I guess the only real options are it's all made up, there's a real person, or there's a real person and things were misconstrued. It seems like it almost has to be the last one. The first two seem almost impossible. There isn't one. You weren't missed. I'm probably going to shut down the live because we got one person that was okay. They didn't have much to say. And then we got you guys. I think it's just like the fakeness. Like, if you can't be really anybody, if you're just like a completely fake, if your existence is all about being fake, faking what you are, like, it's sad. It's just a big drain and a waste of time. So, I could do something better instead. And take a nap. Yeah, 6-7. So it's 38 specimen 33 says, can you speak on the fanfic of you and Andrew Tate? It's just like, dude, like, just because something can exist because you could put that prompt into Chat GPT and make it happen. Like, And who would it be a fan of? If it was a fan of me, that might be interesting. Hmm.